The wine glass shattered against the ivory wallpaper, spraying crimson liquid like arterial blood. The room fell silent. Forks hovered midair. Conversations died. The crystal fragments sparkled under the chandeliers of Elysium, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant. Elena Reyes didn't flinch. Emerald eyes locked with steel gray. The waitress and the most dangerous man in New York, separated by wealth, power, and a history neither yet understood. The air between them crackled with tension. "Are you going to throw another one, or will you behave like a gentleman and order dinner?" Elena's voice cut through the silence, steady as bedrock. Alexander Blackwood studied her with cold precision. 6'2" of lethal elegance in a custom Tom Ford suit worth more than her annual salary. His dark hair touched with silver at the temples, frame features carved from granite. At 42, he commanded the room without speaking. Men who ran Fortune 500 companies cowered before his gaze. Yet Elena Reyes stood unmoved. Alexander checked his Patek Philippe watch, $250,000 on his wrist, and leaned forward slightly. The smallest movement, but everyone within 20 feet instinctively recoiled. Everyone except Elena. "The wine is corked," he said, voice soft but carrying across the hushed restaurant. "Take it back." Elena glanced at the bottle of Chateau Lafite 1982, which she had opened perfectly 15 minutes earlier. $800 of French perfection, barely touched. "No, it isn't." 2 words, a death sentence in any other establishment. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. Alexander's companion, a nervous man in a cheaper suit, actually gasped. At nearby tables, 3 large men shifted hands, drifting toward concealed weapons. "What did you just say to me?" Alexander's question floated like silk over steel. "I said the wine isn't corked. You don't like it, fine. But don't make excuses. Just say you want something different." The room held its collective breath. No one spoke to Alexander Blackwood this way. Not if they wanted to see tomorrow's sunrise. Blackwood rose slowly from his chair. The restaurant manager appeared pale and sweating. "Mr. Blackwood, please forgive." Alexander silenced him with a glance. "Do you have any idea who I am?" he asked Elena, his voice carrying despite its softness. She tilted her head. "Should I?" His eye twitched. Actually twitched. The first genuine reaction from a man who had mastered emotional control at 19 when he watched his father bleed out on their kitchen floor. "I own this restaurant, Ms. Reyes, as of 3 weeks ago." Her eyes widened slightly, the first crack in her composure. "How did he know her name?" "You're fired," he continued. "You have 30 seconds to leave before I have you removed." The words hit like physical blows. Elena had worked at Elysium for 3 years. The rent was due. Her grandmother's medication cost $600 a month. The student loans, the medical bills. Yet even knowing this, even feeling financial panic clawing at her chest, Elena couldn't make herself apologize. Her pride was the only thing she had left. "Fine." She untied her apron, pulled out the $43 in tips, and dropped the apron on his table. "You know what? I feel sorry for you." That got his attention. "Excuse me. You heard me? You're rich. You're powerful. Everyone's terrified of you. And yet you're still the most miserable-looking person in this restaurant. That's actually sad." Then she turned and walked toward the exit, head high, heart hammering, with absolutely no plan for how she would pay rent. She almost made it to the door. "Wait!" His voice stopped her. Against her better judgment, she looked back. Alexander was studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "What's your name?" "Does it matter? I don't work here anymore." "Your name." Something in his tone made her answer. "Elena Reyes." He nodded slowly, committing it to memory in a way that should have terrified her. "You'll be hearing from me, Miss Reyes." It should have sounded like a threat. Instead, it almost sounded like a promise. Elena pushed through the door into the cold Manhattan night, unaware that in the darkened restaurant, Alexander Blackwood watched her through the window, his face thoughtful. Beside him, his head of security, Luca, waited silently. "Find out everything about her," Alexander said quietly. "Everything." 3 days later, Elena sat in her studio apartment in Queens, staring at her bank account. $217. Rent was due in 6 days, and she was already 3 weeks behind. Her phone buzzed with another rejection. The 5th restaurant that week. Word had spread fast. "Don't hire the girl who disrespected Alexander Blackwood." She tossed the phone onto her bed and rubbed her eyes. The walls of the converted storage room felt like they were closing in. A hot plate served as her kitchen. The bathroom sink doubled as her shower when the building's shared bathroom was occupied. In the corner, her grandmother slept fitfully on the pull-out couch, the oxygen concentrator humming steadily. 82 years old with failing lungs and a heart that kept beating through sheer stubbornness, the same quality she'd passed on to her granddaughter. Elena moved quietly to check the oxygen levels. Sophia Reyes had raised her after Elena's father, a decorated police detective, was killed during an investigation into corruption. Elena had been 10, suddenly orphaned, when the only parent she'd known was found shot in an alley. No arrests were ever made. The case went cold. Her grandmother had taken her and worked extra shifts as a nurse and somehow kept them afloat. Now it was Elena's turn to care for her, and she was failing. A knock at the door made her jump. Their landlord, probably. Come to threaten eviction again. She opened the door to find a man in an expensive suit standing in the dingy hallway. Not the landlord, one of Blackwood's men, the one who'd been sitting at the table next to his. Ms. Reyes? She tried to close the door. His hand shot out, catching it easily. Mr. Blackwood would like to speak with you. I'm not interested. The man smiled slightly. He thought you might say that. He handed her a sealed envelope. His number. Call him by midnight or don't, your choice. He turned and walked away, leaving Elena holding the envelope like it might explode. She closed the door and leaned against it, heart racing. The envelope contained a single card with a phone number. Nothing else. No threat, no bribe, just 10 digits that could change everything or nothing. Her grandmother stirred, coughing weakly. Elena checked the medication bottles lined up on the windowsill. Almost empty. The refills would cost money she didn't have. With trembling fingers, she picked up her phone. Across town, Alexander Blackwood stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, gazing at the glittering expanse of Central Park 68 stories below. The space was immaculate, 3 floors of luxury designed by the world's foremost architects. Marble floors, leather furniture, art worth millions adorning the walls. And he noticed none of it. In his hand, he held a file. Elena Maria Reyes, 28 years old. No family except a grandmother, Sophia Reyes, former nurse, now with advanced COPD. Father, deceased detective James Reyes, killed during an investigation 15 years ago. Mother, unknown, never in the picture. Foster care until her grandmother took her in. Scholarships to NYU. Dropped out senior year when her grandmother got sick. 2 jobs, Elysium by night, hospital laundry by morning. $45,000 in student loans and medical debt. No criminal record. No connections to any families or organizations that might be using her. Just a woman with terrible luck and a backbone of steel. His phone vibrated on the marble countertop. Unknown number. Yes. A pause, then, this is Elena Reyes. Alexander smiled slightly. Ms. Reyes, I expected your call. I'm only calling because I need money. You clearly have it. Direct, honest. He appreciated that. Indeed I do, and I might have a proposition for you. I'm listening. Not over the phone, my office, tomorrow 10 a.m., Blackwood Enterprises, top floor. He gave her the address. Don't be late. He ended the call before she could respond, turning to Luca, who watched from the doorway. You sure about this boss bringing in an outsider? Alexander set down the file. Someone inside my organization is stealing from my Luca, moving shipments, skimming money, and they're smart enough to cover their tracks. We'll find them. We've been looking for months. Meanwhile, I'm losing millions. I need someone they won't see coming, someone observant, someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Luca frowned. The waitress, because she stood up to you. That's a reason to trust her with something this sensitive. Alexander looked out at the city, his city. When was the last time someone told me the truth to my face, knowing what it might cost them? Luca had no answer. Besides, Alexander continued, she has no connections to any of my people, no history with any competing organizations, and she's desperate enough to say yes. And if she betrays you too, Alexander's expression hardened, then she'll learn why people fear me. The next morning, Elena stood in the gleaming lobby of Blackwood Enterprises, feeling painfully out of place. The receptionist eyed her worn blazer from Goodwill and the pants she'd ironed 3 times to hide the wear. Elena Reyes for Mr. Blackwood. Top floor, he's expecting me. The receptionist's perfectly manicured nails clicked on her keyboard. ID, please. Elena presented her driver's license. Take the private elevator. Last one on the right. The elevator was lined with mirrors and smelled of leather and subtle cologne. 68 floors of upward mobility that Elena had never experienced. Her reflection stared back at her from all sides, dark hair, pulled back in a simple ponytail. Green eyes tired but determined, the olive skin that spoke of her father's Puerto Rican heritage. The doors opened silently onto a reception area of Carrara marble and glass. A man in an Armani suit approached immediately. Ms. Reyes, this way. She was led through sleek corridors to a set of double doors that opened into Alexander Blackwood's domain. The office was obscene in its grandeur, high ceilings, custom furniture, museum-quality art. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Manhattan like a kingdom at his feet. Alexander stood with his back to her hands in the pockets of his navy suit silhouetted against the morning sky. He didn't turn immediately, letting her feel the weight of his power and position. You came. You doubted I would. Most people run from me. Now he turned, fixing her with that penetrating, gray gaze. You keep walking closer. Why is that? Because I need this job. No. He moved toward her, slow and predatory. There's something else. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Yes. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive masculine. I'm going to offer you a position, Ms. Reyes, but first I need to know, can you keep your mouth shut when it matters? Her pulse quickened. Depends what I'm keeping quiet about. Someone in my organization is stealing from me, moving shipments, skimming money. I need to find out who. His eyes locked onto hers. I need someone they won't see coming. Someone to watch, listen, report back. You want me to spy for you? I want you to help me find a traitor. In exchange, I'll pay you $100,000. Elena's knees nearly buckled. $100,000, that was everything. Rent, medical bills, her grandmother's care, her student loans. Why me? Because nobody knows you, because you're observant. You caught details about that wine nobody else would notice. He paused, something flickering across his face. And because I trust my instincts. And my instincts say you're loyal. You don't even know me. I know you work 2 jobs to support your grandmother. I know you'd rather starve than apologize when you think you're right. I know you're desperate enough to call the man who fired you. He tilted his head. Am I wrong? He wasn't. What exactly would I be doing? I'm hosting a charity gala tomorrow night. All my business associates will be there, including my traitor. You'll attend as my date. Observe and tell me who doesn't fit, who's nervous, who's too confident. Your date, her voice cracked. It's a cover, nothing more. But the way his eyes traveled over her face suggested he was trying to convince himself too. One night, Elena, you help me identify suspects, and I'll pay you half up front. $50,000 tomorrow. $50,000. She thought of her grandmother's medical bills, the landlord's threats, the collection agencies calling daily, the crushing weight of being one emergency away from homelessness. And if something goes wrong, if these people figure out what I'm doing. Alexander stepped closer. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Then I protect you. You'll be under my protection. His voice dropped lower. No one touches what's mine. What's mine? The words sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. This is insane, she whispered. Yes, he agreed. Is that a no? Elena looked into those dark, dangerous eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Loneliness. This powerful, feared man was alone, betrayed by his own people, trusting a stranger because he had no one else. She recognized that loneliness. She'd lived it her entire life. One condition, she said. You tell me the truth about everything. What I'm walking into, what the risks really are. No surprises. Agreed. Then yes, I'll do it. Alexander's smile was slow, genuine, and completely transformed his face. For one moment, he wasn't a mafia boss. He was just a man who'd found an unexpected ally. He extended his hand. Partners. Elena shook it, his grip warm and strong. Partners. Neither of them let go immediately. The air between them crackled with something electric, dangerous, unnamed. Tomorrow night, Alexander said softly, still holding her hand. I'll send a car at 7. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Accidental or intentional, she couldn't tell. And Elena, yes, wear something that makes them underestimate you. Pretty harmless, forgettable. She pulled her hand back, trying to ignore the tingling where he'd touched her. I've been underestimated my whole life. That part will be easy. What she didn't say. Pretending this is just business. That's going to be the hard part. The dress arrived at noon the next day. Elena stared at the garment bag hanging on her door like it might explode. Inside was a floor-length emerald gown that probably cost more than her car. A note in sharp masculine handwriting. Green, it'll match your eyes. A. Despite everything, she smiled. By 6:30, she had transformed herself. The dress fit perfectly, which meant he'd somehow gotten her measurements. The thought should have creeped her out. Instead, it made her pulse race. Hair down in soft waves, minimal makeup. Heels that made her legs look endless. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her grandmother watched from the pull-out couch. You look beautiful, mija, but dangerous men bring dangerous problems. Elena kissed her forehead. It's just one night, abuela, and the money will pay for your medication. Money always costs something, Elena. Remember what your father used to say. The truth is never simple, and justice is never cheap. Her grandmother nodded. Be careful tonight. The car arrived exactly at 7. Black SUV, tinted windows, silent driver. Very Mafia chic. Alexander was waiting in the building lobby, and when he saw her, he went completely still. Well, Elena asked, suddenly self-conscious. Harmless enough. He recovered quickly, but not before she caught something heated flash in his eyes. You look perfect. He offered his arm back to controlled businessman. Remember, you're just my date. Smile, observe, and stay close to me. Why do I feel like you added that last part for reasons that have nothing to do with the job? His lips quirked. Because you're perceptive. It's why I hired you. The gala was being held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Hundreds of guests in designer clothes, champagne flowing, string quartet playing. Old money and new crime mixing like expensive perfume and gunpowder. Alexander's hand settled on the small of her back, possessive and warm through the thin fabric. See the man in the gray suit? That's Michael Stone, my second in command. Loyal since we were teenagers. He paused. I trust him with my life, but trust doesn't mean certainty. His breath was warm against her ear. The woman in red, that's Natalia Vega, runs my shipping operations. Brilliant, ambitious, possibly too ambitious. They moved through the crowd and Elena felt every eye on them. Curiosity, calculation, women shooting her looks that could melt steel. You didn't tell people you were bringing someone, she murmured. I never bring anyone. You're causing quite a stir. He seemed pleased by this. For the next hour, Alexander introduced her to his world. Each handshake was a test, each smile a potential lie. Elena watched everything who held eye contact too long, who avoided it completely, whose hands trembled when they greeted Alexander. She noticed Thomas Weiss, the accountant, sweating despite the air conditioning. Noticed how Natalia kept checking her phone. How Michael watched Alexander with something that looked almost like pity. We need to talk, she whispered during a lull. I'm seeing things. Alexander guided her onto a balcony away from curious ears. The Manhattan skyline glittered before them, and for a moment they were just two people alone under the stars. Tell me, he said, your accountant is terrified, your shipping manager is distracted. She paused. And Michael keeps looking at you like you're a dead man walking. What aren't you telling me, Alexander? His jaw tightened. Michael thinks I'm being reckless. That investigating internally will start a war. Is he right? Probably. Alexander turned to face her fully. In the moonlight, he looked younger, more vulnerable. But I can't let betrayal slide. My father did that once. It got him killed. The confession hung between them. How old were you? Elena asked softly. 19. I watched him bleed out on our kitchen floor because he trusted the wrong person. His hands gripped the balcony railing. I swore I'd never make that mistake. Without thinking, Elena placed her hand over his. I'm sorry. He stared at their hands like he'd forgotten what comfort looked like. Why do you do that? Do what? Touch me like you're not afraid. Everyone's afraid. I told you I'm not everyone. She should pull her hand back. She didn't. Besides, you're not as scary as you think you are. No. He turned his hand over, threading his fingers through hers. The gesture was intimate, dangerous. What am I then, lonely, she thought. Hurt human, complicated. You have no idea, she said instead. His thumb traced circles on her palm, and the simple touch sent electricity up her arm. Whatever this is between us, it's a bad idea. Terrible idea, she agreed, her voice barely a whisper. You work for me. Temporarily. I'm not fragile. They were leaning closer now, the space between them shrinking. His free hand came up to cup her jaw, and Elena's breath caught. Boss? Michael burst onto the balcony, shattering the moment. His face was pale. We have a problem. Alexander dropped his hand immediately back to the cold businessman. What problem? Two of our warehouses just got raided, FBI. Alexander's expression went arctic. When 20 minutes ago, simultaneous hits. Michael's eyes flickered to Elena. Someone tipped them off. Someone who knew tonight we'd all be here. Distracted. The implication was clear. You think I brought the FBI? Elena's voice rose in disbelief. I think it's one hell of a coincidence that he brings a stranger into the organization and 12 hours later, we're compromised. Michael looked apologetic but firm. Standard protocol. She needs to be questioned. Like hell. It's okay, Elena interrupted, squeezing Alexander's hand once before letting go. I have nothing to hide. Ask whatever you need to ask. But as Michael led her back inside to a private room, she caught sight of Natalia watching them with a small, satisfied smile. And Elena realized with cold certainty this was a setup. The raids weren't about the FBI. They were about making her look guilty, about separating her from Alexander. The real traitor was making their move. The questioning room was small, windowless, and contained three very large men who looked at Elena like she was a problem that needed solving. Michael sat across from her, expression regretful. I need your phone. She handed it over. You won't find anything. Where were you yesterday between 2 and 4 p.m.? My apartment. Alone. No alibi. She met his eyes steadily. I'm being framed, Michael. Think about it. I've been with Alexander all night. When would I have time to contact the FBI? This could have been your plan all along. But he didn't sound convinced. Then why would I agree to come here tonight? Why not just take the money and run? The door slammed open. Alexander stood there, fury radiating off him like heat. This is done. Boss protocol. I said it's done, man. Alexander's voice was deadly quiet. She's clean. I'd stake my life on it. You might be staking all our lives on it, Michael shot back. Damn it, Alexander. Think with your head, not your... He stopped himself. Not my what? Alexander moved into the room like a storm. Say it. Michael stood frustrated. You're compromised. Anyone can see the way you look at her. It's making you reckless. What's making me reckless is my second in command questioning my judgment. The temperature dropped. We clear. After a tense moment, Michael nodded. Clear. But boss, watch your back. Something about tonight feels orchestrated. He left and Elena released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. You okay? Alexander asked, his anger melting into concern. I'm fine, but Michael's right about the orchestrated part. She stood, her mind racing. Alexander, what if the traitor isn't working alone? What if this whole thing, the theft, the raids bringing me in, what if it's all pieces of something bigger? His eyes widened slightly. A coup. Someone wants my position, and they need you paranoid and alone to take it. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, how does a waitress know about power plays and organizational coups? I read a lot, she said dryly, and I've seen enough workplace drama to know that ambition makes people stupid. Despite everything, he almost smiled. Come on, I'm getting you out of here. What about the gala? Screw the gala. Someone just declared war, and I'm not leaving you exposed. His hand found hers again, and this time it felt less like attraction and more like a promise. You're staying with me tonight. My penthouse. It's the only place I know is secure. Alexander, that wasn't a request, Elena. Someone tried to frame you, which means they know you're important to me. His grip tightened, which means you're now a target. So until we figure out who's behind this, you stay where I can protect you. The possessiveness in his voice should have annoyed her. Instead, it made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. Alexander Blackwood's penthouse was a fortress. Security cameras reinforced doors, bulletproof windows, overlooking a city that belonged to him. But tonight that fortress had been breached. The emergency lights bathed everything in blood red. Glass crunched beneath their feet as Alexander guided Elena through the wreckage of what had been his sanctuary. His shoulder was bleeding where a bullet had grazed him. Elena's emerald dress was torn, her hair, wild eyes wide but determined. "Who would dare?" she whispered, surveying the destruction. Alexander's jaw tightened. "Someone who's been planning this for a long time." He led her to his study, a space of leather and mahogany untouched by the attack. With practiced precision, he entered a code on a hidden panel. A section of bookcase slid away, revealing a panic room. "Get inside," he ordered. Elena stood firm. "Not without you." "Elena, they separated us once already. I'm not letting it happen again." Something flickered in Alexander's eyes, surprise followed by reluctant admiration. He nodded once and pressed a different sequence of numbers. The bookcase slid further, revealing a larger space. Inside was a command center monitor showing every angle of the penthouse weapons cabinet. Medical supplies. Luca appeared in the doorway, blood trickling from a cut above his eye. "Boss, perimeter secured. They're gone." "For now," Alexander said. "Michael." "Checking the other properties. No activity reported yet." Alexander moved to the monitors, studying them with cold calculation. He winced slightly, the only indication of the pain from his wounded shoulder. "Let me help," Elena said, reaching for the medical supplies. "I'm fine. You're bleeding on your $12,000 carpet." The corner of his mouth twitched. "It's a $20,000 carpet." Elena rolled her eyes and began cleaning his wound. "Good to know near-death experiences don't damage your sense of privilege." As she worked, Alexander watched her hands steady, precise. The same hands that had served wine with perfect form now tended to his injury with equal skill. "Where did you learn first aid?" he asked. "My grandmother was a nurse. She taught me." Elena applied antiseptic, noticing how he didn't flinch despite the sting. "And when your best friend's an ER doctor who works crazy shifts, you learn to stitch her up when she's too tired to do it herself." Alexander studied her face. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone who would break." Elena met his gaze. "I bent, many times, but I never broke." She finished bandaging his shoulder, her fingers lingering a moment too long. Alexander caught her hand, holding it against his chest. His heartbeat was strong and steady beneath her palm. Luca cleared his throat. "Boss, we've got something." On the monitor, they watched security footage from one of the warehouses. The timestamp showed it was from 2 hours ago. Natalia entered, speaking urgently to a man whose face they couldn't see. "Can you enhance this?" Alexander asked. Luca zoomed in. The man turned slightly. Alexander went perfectly still. "Michael." Elena felt him tense beneath her hand. "You're second in command. The loyal one since you were teenagers." "Play it." The footage had no audio, but they could see Michael nodding, pointing to various areas of the warehouse. Natalia handed him something, a flash drive. "Find him," Alexander growled. "Now!" Luca was already on his phone, barking orders. Alexander moved away from Elena, his face transformed into a mask of cold fury. "He's been with me for 15 years. His voice was dangerously soft. 15 years. Elena approached carefully. "Alexander, something doesn't add up. The way Michael looked at you at the gala, it wasn't the look of a traitor. It was concern. You don't know him." "No, but I know people, and I know when someone is acting." Alexander turned to her. "Are you suggesting this is another setup?" "I'm suggesting we get all the facts before you put a bullet in your oldest friend's head." His eyes narrowed. "Is that what you think of me? That I'd execute someone without proof?" Elena held his gaze. "Would you?" "Oh," the question hung between them, charged and dangerous. "Boss," Luca interrupted. "Michael's gone dark. GPS disabled on his phone. Last signal was near the East River." Alexander moved to the weapons cabinet, selecting a gun with practiced ease. "Lock down all the properties. Double security on the remaining warehouses." He checked the magazine. "And get the car ready." "Where are we going?" Elena asked. "Not we. You're staying here." "Like hell I am." Alexander turned, his expression cold. "This isn't a debate, Elena. You've done your job. You identified the possible traitors. Now it's time for me to handle it. And what happens when you walk into another trap? You think they won't be expecting you to come after Michael? I can handle myself." Like you did tonight. She gestured to his bandaged shoulder. His eyes flashed. You don't understand what you're getting into. I understand perfectly. Elena stepped closer, refusing to be intimidated. Someone is systematically trying to destroy you, Alexander. They're using the people you trust. First me, now Michael. They're isolating you, making you paranoid. That's exactly what they want. The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. 5 minutes, he finally said. Pack anything you need. We leave in 5. The car was a sleek, armored Mercedes designed for both luxury and survival. Alexander drove with the same intensity he brought to everything controlled power just below the surface. Elena watched his profile in the dim glow of the dashboard, the hard line of his jaw, the laser focus in his eyes. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere no one knows about, not even Luca. They drove in silence through the midnight streets of New York, the city oblivious to the war being waged in its shadows. Elena thought of her grandmother alone in their apartment. My abuela. Already taken care of, Alexander said without taking his eyes off the road. I sent 2 men to watch over her. They're former military, not connected to my organization. No one will link them to me. The unexpected thoughtfulness caught her off guard. Thank you. He nodded once. Another stretch of silence. Why did you really hire me, Alexander? He glanced at her briefly. I told you, you're observant. You have no connections to my world. There are thousands of observant women in New York with no connections to organized crime. His hands tightened slightly on the wheel. You weren't afraid of me? Is that so unusual? Yes. The single word carried the weight of a lifetime of being feared rather than seen. They turned onto a narrow street in Brooklyn, lined with converted warehouses. Alexander parked in an underground garage, punched a code into a service elevator. They rode in silence to the top floor. The space that greeted them was nothing like his Manhattan penthouse. It was smaller, simpler. Comfortable furniture walls lined with books, large windows overlooking the East River. No ostentatious displays of wealth, no priceless art. Just a place to live, not to impress. No one knows about this place, Elena asked. No one. Alexander moved to a cabinet, poured himself a whiskey. My father bought it 30 years ago, before he became a judge, before everything. He handed her a glass, then moved to the window, looking out at the city lights reflected on the dark water. My father was a good man, he said quietly. Hard but fair. He believed in justice above all else. Elena joined him at the window. So what happened? How did his son end up running half of New York's underworld? Alexander's reflection stared back at her from the glass. When my father put Victor Caruso away, he knew there would be consequences. What he didn't expect was betrayal from someone he trusted. He turned to face her. I was 19, pre-law at Columbia. I came home one night and found him in the kitchen, 3 bullets in his chest. His voice remained even, but his eyes burned with the memory. He was still alive. He told me a name. Then he dead in my arms. Who was it? Elena asked softly. Michael Stone. Her eyes widened. Your second in command. The man who's been loyal to you for 15 years. Not Michael, his father, James Stone. Alexander took a long swallow of whiskey. He was my father's bailiff. They'd worked together for a decade. He was like family to us. And you killed him. Well, it wasn't a question, but Alexander answered anyway. I tracked him to Victor Caruso's estate, put a bullet in each of them. I was 19 years old and I became judge, jury, and executioner. And Michael, did he know? That I killed his father, yes. But he also knew what his father had done. Elena tried to process this. So the son of the man who betrayed your father became your most trusted lieutenant. Ironic, isn't it? Alexander's smile was cold. Michael came to me a year later, said he wanted to work for me, that he understood why I did what I did. And you believed him. I had him investigated thoroughly. He had no contact with Caruso's organization. He seemed genuinely disgusted by what his father had done. Alexander's expression darkened. For 15 years, I believed I knew him. Elena set her glass down. And now you're not sure. Now I'm not sure of anything. He met her eyes. Except that someone is trying to destroy everything I've built. And they're using the people closest to me to do it. The weight of his words hung between them. Elena felt the invisible boundary between them shifting, something personal emerging from the professional arrangement. You should get some rest, Alexander said, breaking the moment. Bedroom's through there. I'll take the couch. Elena raised an eyebrow. Such chivalry from a crime lord. Don't get used to it. But there was something almost like humor in his eyes. The night passed quietly, but sleep eluded Elena. The bed was comfortable, the sheets expensive, but her mind wouldn't quiet. Images from the evening kept replaying, the glass shattering, Alexander's blood on her hands, the look in his eyes when he saw Michael with Natalia. She gave up around 3 in the morning, padding quietly into the living room. Alexander wasn't on the couch. She found him at the dining table, papers spread before him, laptop open. He'd changed into jeans and a black t-shirt that revealed muscled arms marked with old scars. Without the suit, he looked younger, more human. He didn't look up. You should be sleeping. So should you. I'm used to it. Elena sat across from him. What are you doing trying to make sense of this? He pushed a file toward her. Everything I have on Natalia Vega. Elena opened it. Employment records, background checks, surveillance photos. She joined your organization 6 years ago. Came highly recommended, MBA from Wharton. Experience in international shipping. Perfect candidate to manage that side of my business. And you never suspected anything. No, she was efficient, discreet, never asked unnecessary questions. His jaw tightened. I was blind. Elena studied the file, something nagging at her. There's not much here about her before Wharton. Family background, early education. It's there, 3rd page. She flipped through. Parents deceased. Raised by her grandmother in Chicago. Scholarship to Northwestern. Elena frowned. It's very neat. What do you mean? It's too perfect, like a resume that's been crafted to check all the boxes without revealing anything real. She looked up at him. Did you ever meet her grandmother? Any childhood friends? Alexander's expression changed, realization dawning. No. Did she ever talk about her past? Not beyond the basics. Elena set the file down. I think Natalia Vega isn't real. Alexander was already reaching for his phone. Luca, I need a deeper background check on Natalia. Go back 20 years. School records, medical history, everything. He paused, listening. Yes, now. He set the phone down, turning back to Elena. How did you see it? My father was a detective, remember? He used to say that the perfect story is usually the perfect lie. She tapped the file. This is too clean. Real lives are messy. Alexander studied her with new appreciation. You're wasted as a waitress. Tell that to my bank account. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. When this is over, his phone rang, cutting him off. His expression darkened as he listened. When, he demanded. How many? No, secure the scene. Don't let anyone touch anything. He ended the call, already moving toward his bedroom. Get dressed. We need to go. Elena followed. What happened? One of my warehouses just exploded. 3 men dead. Which one? The one Michael and Natalia were seen at in the security footage. They were in the car within minutes, speeding through the pre-dawn streets. Alexander drove with controlled fury, his entire body tense. You think they're destroying evidence? Elena asked. Or sending a message? His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Either way, they're getting bolder. They arrived at a scene of controlled chaos. Fire trucks, police, Alexander's security maintaining a perimeter. The warehouse was still smoldering, one wall completely destroyed. The acrid smell of smoke and chemicals hung in the air. Luca met them at the security line. Boss, you shouldn't be here. Police are asking questions. Let them, Alexander said coldly. What do we know? Explosion happened at 3:17 a.m. Professional job. Remote detonated. The men... Luca's expression was grim. 2 security guards and Carlos from accounting. He wasn't supposed to be here. Alexander's face hardened. Carlos handled the shipping manifests and would have access to all the missing shipment records, Elena added. Convenient, Alexander muttered. Security footage? Wiped clean. System was hacked about 20 minutes before the explosion. Alexander turned to Elena. Wait here with Luca. Where are you going? To have a word with the detective in charge. She watched as he approached a middle-aged man in a rumpled suit. There was a brief exchange, the detective nodding, then Alexander slipping something into the man's pocket. The corruption was so casual, so expected, that it momentarily jarred Elena. She'd almost forgotten who Alexander really was. He owns half the department, Luca said, following her gaze. The other half knows better than to cross him. And you, Elena asked, how long have you worked for him? 10 years, since I got back from Afghanistan. Why? Luca looked at her, surprised by the question. Because he saved my life. His expression softened slightly. My sister was mixed up with some bad people, owed the wrong kind of money. They were going to sell her to pay the debt. His eyes hardened at the memory. Mr. Blackwood found out, paid her debt, had the men responsible dealt with. Just like that, no strings attached. Oh, there were strings. I've been working for him ever since. Luca's gaze returned to Alexander. But I would have anyway. Some debts you never stop paying. Alexander returned before she could respond. Police will rule it an accident. Gas leak. And the real investigation, she asked, is ours. His phone chimed with a message. He checked it, his expression darkening further. Luca, take Elena back to the safe house. I need to handle something. Elena caught his arm. After everything that's happened, this isn't a discussion. It should be. You going off alone is exactly what they want. Alexander's eyes flashed. I don't take orders from you, Elena. It's not an order. It's common sense. She held his gaze, refusing to back down. Whatever that message is, it's designed to separate us again. For a tense moment, she thought he would refuse. Then he showed her the screen. A photo of Michael bloodied but alive, tied to a chair. The message below, come alone or he dies. You have 1 hour. It's a trap, Luca said immediately. Obviously, Alexander agreed. But if Michael isn't the traitor? And if he is, Elena asked, you'd still go. Alexander's expression was unreadable. 15 years, Elena. I owe him the courtesy of looking him in the eye before I put a bullet in his head. The coldness in his voice sent a chill through her. This was the Alexander Blackwood that New York feared, the man who had built an empire on blood and fear. Then I'm coming with you, she said. Absolutely not. I'm the only one who saw how Michael looked at you at the gala. I'm the only one who might be able to tell if he's lying. Alexander looked to Luca, who shrugged. She's got a point, boss. Fine, Alexander finally said, but you stay in the car with Luca. You don't enter the building under any circumstances. Are we clear? Elena nodded. Crystal. The address led them to an abandoned theater in the Bronx. Once grand, now a decaying shell surrounded by empty lots and graffiti-covered buildings. The perfect place for an ambush. Alexander checked his gun eyes, scanning the surroundings. No visible lookouts. Too easy. Could be inside, Luca suggested, his own weapon ready. Almost certainly. Alexander turned to Elena. Remember, stay in the car. If something goes wrong, Luca will get you out. Don't wait for me. Before she could respond, he leaned across and kissed her. It was brief, hard, almost angry, a statement rather than a gesture of affection. When he pulled back, his eyes were cold again. Lock the doors behind me. He was gone before she could find her voice, disappearing into the shadowed entrance of the theater. Elena watched, her heart hammering against her ribs. The kiss lingered on her lips like a brand. Minutes ticked by in tense silence. Luca kept scanning the perimeter, gun resting on his thigh. He's done this before, he said without looking at her. He'll be fine. Is that what you tell yourself? Now he did look at her. Why do you care? You've known him for what, 3 days? 2, actually. Elena met his gaze. And I don't know why I care. I just do. Something shifted in Luca's expression. He's different with you. Different how? Less controlled, more human. Luca turned back to watching the theater. It's been a long time since I've seen that version of him. Elena was about to respond when a movement caught her eye. A flash of red hair at a side entrance of the theater. Natalia, she whispered. Luca followed her gaze. Where? Side entrance. Red hair, just for a second. He pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Boss, Natalia's on site. East entrance. He listened, then cursed. No answer. Elena's hand was already on the door handle. We need to warn him. He said to stay in the car. And let him walk into a trap. No way. She was out of the car before Luca could stop her. Damn it, Elena. He scrambled after her. At least wait for me. The side entrance was unlocked. They slipped inside, finding themselves in a narrow corridor lined with peeling posters of long-forgotten performances. The air smelled of mold and dust. Their footsteps echoed despite their attempts at silence. Luca took the lead gun ready, moving with the practiced efficiency of a soldier. They followed the corridor to a junction, pausing to listen. Voices drifted from the direction of the main stage. Always were too trusting, Alexander. A woman's voice. Natalia. I trusted you for 6 years. Alexander responded, his tone controlled but dangerous. That was my mistake. One of many. A male voice now. Michael. Elena and Luca exchanged a glance. They crept forward, finding a position in the wings where they could see without being seen. The stage was dimly lit by work lights. Alexander stood center stage, gun at his side. Facing him were Michael and Natalia. Michael's face was bruised, a cut above his eye, but he stood unbound, no longer the captive from the photo. Why Michael? Alexander asked, his voice echoing in the empty theater. 15 years of loyalty. For what? Michael's laugh was bitter. Loyalty, is that what you call it? I've spent 15 years watching you become the very thing your father fought against. My father was murdered by yours. My father made a mistake, one he paid for with his life. Michael stepped closer. I thought working for you would balance the scales, that I could guide you, help you build something legitimate, something your father would have been proud of. And when did you decide I was beyond redemption? When you stopped listening. When the power became more important than the purpose. Natalia moved forward, her hand resting on Michael's arm. We tried, Alexander. For years we tried to steer you toward legitimacy, but you were too caught up in your empire. Her smile was cold, so we decided to tear it down. Alexander's expression remained impassive. And you, what's your stake in this, Natalia? Or should I call you by your real name? She stiffened slightly. You've been busy. Not me. My new associate has quite the eye for detail. Alexander's gaze never wavered. Natalia Caruso, Victor's daughter. You were 12 when I killed your father. Elena's breath caught. From her hiding place, she could see the tension ripple through Natalia's body. 15 years, Natalia said, her voice tight with emotion. 15 years of planning, of working my way into your organization. 15 years waiting for the moment to destroy everything you loved, just as you destroyed my family. Your father was a monster. He was my father. The composure cracked, revealing raw hatred beneath. Do you have any idea what it was like, 12 years old, watching the news announce my father's death? Having to hide who I was because of what he'd done. So this is about revenge. This is about justice. Natalia's smile returned cold and triumphant. Look around you, Alexander. Your empire is crumbling. Your warehouse is destroyed. Your people turning against you. By sunrise, the FBI will have enough evidence to put you away for the rest of your life. And you think I'll just surrender? No, Michael said. We think you'll fight. That's what we're counting on. The realization dawned on Elena. This wasn't just about destroying Alexander's business. It was about breaking him, making him into the monster they claimed he was. Now, Luca suddenly shouted, bursting from their hiding place, gun raised. Everything happened at once. Michael dove for cover. Natalia pulled a gun from beneath her jacket. Alexander moved with lightning speed, tackling Natalia just as she fired. The shot went wild, ricocheting off ancient scenery. Elena ran onto the stage as Luca pursued Michael into the wings. Alexander and Natalia grappled for control of the gun, rolling across the dusty boards. With a vicious twist, Natalia broke free, the gun now pointed at Alexander's heart. Stop, Elena shouted. Natalia's head whipped toward her, recognition and hatred flashing in her eyes. The waitress. Of course, she kept the gun trained on Alexander but addressed Elena. Do you know what he is, what he's done? I know he's not the monster you need him to be to justify this. You know nothing, Natalia spat. He murdered my father, destroyed my family, everything I had. And you've spent 15 years becoming exactly like him. Elena took a careful step forward. Is that what your father would have wanted for you? Something flickered in Natalia's eyes, doubt, pain. You don't get to talk about my father. Natalia, Alexander said quietly, your father ordered the hit on my father. He tore my family apart first. Lies. It's true. Michael's voice came from the shadows. He emerged slowly, hands raised, Luca behind him with a gun. I've seen the proof. My father confessed everything before he died. Natalia's hand trembled slightly. No. Victor Caruso was a drug dealer and a murderer, Michael continued. He ordered the death of a judge who was about to sentence him to life. That judge was Alexander's father. Shut up. Natalia's finger tightened on the trigger. It won't bring him back, Elena said softly. Killing Alexander won't erase the past 15 years. It won't give you peace. Tears streamed down Natalia's face now, the gun wavering. What else is there? I've given everything to this. Everything. Alexander slowly stood facing her directly. Then take your shot. End it. But know that I was 19 just like you were 12. We were both children caught in a war started by our fathers. For one heart-stopping moment, Elena was certain Natalia would fire. Then with a broken sob, she lowered the gun. I can't, she whispered. I can't become him. Michael moved to her side, gently taking the weapon. It's over, Natalia. It's done. The tension shattered with the distant wail of police sirens. The FBI, Michael said grimly. They're coming for you, Alexander. We set everything in motion days ago. Alexander's expression hardened. And now, Michael met his gaze steadily. Now we have about 3 minutes to disappear. He turned to Natalia. All of us. Why would you help me? Alexander demanded. Because despite everything, you were like a brother to me. And because, Michael glanced at Elena, because maybe you're not beyond redemption after all. The sirens grew louder. Decisions had to be made. Boss, Luca urged, we need to move. Alexander looked at Elena, a question in his eyes. I'm with you, she said simply. Something shifted in his expression, a softening that transformed his entire face. He turned back to Michael and Natalia. East River, he said. There's a boat waiting. Get out of the city. Luca will contact you when it's safe. Michael nodded, taking Natalia's hand. What about you? Alexander's gaze returned to Elena. I have unfinished business. As Michael and Natalia disappeared through a backstage exit, Alexander took Elena's hand. Last chance to walk away. The FBI won't connect you to any of this if you leave now. Elena tightened her grip on his hand. I told you, I'm not everyone. For the first time since she'd met him, Alexander Blackwood truly smiled. No, he agreed, you're not. And as sirens converged on the abandoned theater, they slipped away into the pre-dawn darkness, hand in hand, toward an uncertain future neither of them could have imagined just days before. Dawn broke over New York City, painting the skyline in hues of amber and gold. 3 days had passed since the abandoned theater. 3 days of hiding, planning, waiting. The world Alexander Blackwood once ruled was crumbling around him, but for the first time in 15 years, he felt strangely unburdened. The safe house in Brooklyn Heights offered a sweeping view of the East River, the Manhattan skyline glittering across the water. Alexander stood at the window, freshly showered, wearing jeans and a simple black t-shirt instead of his usual tailored suit. The change in wardrobe matched the change within him, something fundamental, shifting beneath the surface of his carefully constructed persona. Elena watched him from the kitchen doorway, 2 mugs of coffee in her hands. She'd borrowed one of his shirts, the sleeves rolled up, hair still damp from her own shower. The dress she'd worn to the gala seemed like it belonged to another lifetime. Penny for your thoughts, she said, crossing to him. Alexander accepted the coffee, his fingers brushing against hers. They're worth considerably more than that. Inflation, she agreed with a small smile. Everything costs more these days. He took a sip, eyes never leaving the skyline. The FBI raided all my properties yesterday. They've seized my accounts, my businesses. According to my lawyer, they're building a RICO case. And yet you don't look worried. I've been planning for this possibility for years. He turned to face her. There are accounts they can't touch, properties they don't know about, enough to start over if necessary. Elena studied him. Is that what you want? To start over. The question hung between them, weighted with possibilities neither had dared voice. Before Alexander could answer, his secure phone vibrated on the coffee table. His expression shifted, the businessman replacing the man who'd been standing before her. Luca, he answered. He listened for a long moment, his face revealing nothing. When? Another pause. I'll be there, 1 hour. He ended the call, sliding the phone into his pocket. What is it? Elena asked. Michael reached out. He wants to meet. That sounds like a trap. Probably. But you're going anyway. Alexander's mouth quirked in that almost smile she'd come to recognize. Predictable, honorable, she corrected. Foolish, but honorable. He crossed to a cabinet, unlocking it with a key from his pocket. Inside was a small arsenal, handguns, ammunition, a few larger weapons. He selected a Glock, checking it with practiced efficiency. "You don't have to come," he said, not looking at her. Elena moved to stand beside him. "Yes, I do." Now he did look at her, something unreadable in his gray eyes. "Why?" "Because someone needs to make sure you don't get yourself killed doing something stupidly noble." She reached past him, selecting a smaller weapon. "I told you I'm not everyone." His hand caught her wrist, gentle but firm. "This isn't your fight, Elena. It became my fight the moment you walked into Elysium and fired me." She met his gaze steadily. "I'm coming with you, Alexander. The only question is whether I ride in the car or follow you in a taxi." For a moment, she thought he would refuse. Then his grip softened, his thumb tracing a small circle on her inner wrist where her pulse quickened beneath his touch. "One condition," he said. "You stay in the car with the engine running. If anything goes wrong, you leave immediately." "Two conditions," she countered. "I stay in the car, but if anything goes wrong, I decide whether leaving or helping is the right call." They stared at each other, neither willing to concede. Finally, Alexander nodded once the barest dip of his head. "We leave in 10 minutes. The meeting place was a derelict shipyard in Red Hook, the kind of location that screamed ambush to anyone with even minimal survival instincts. Rusted containers stacked like children's blocks, abandoned machinery, silhouetted against the morning sky, the lapping of water against concrete pilings. Perfect for a confrontation. Perfect for a trap. Alexander parked at the entrance, scanning the surroundings. "Stay here," he said, checking his weapon one last time. "Engine running. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, I'll come find you." He gave her a sharp look. "Elena." 15 minutes, Alexander. Then I do things my way." He wanted to argue. She could see it in the tension around his mouth. Instead, he leaned across and kissed her. Unlike the desperate kiss at the theater, this was gentle, almost tender. When he pulled back, his eyes had softened. 15 minutes, he agreed. She watched him walk away, his figure growing smaller as he moved between the stacks of shipping containers. When he disappeared from view, she started counting seconds in her head. Alexander moved through the shipyard like a predator, senses heightened, weapon ready, but not drawn. He spotted Michael long before he reached him, standing alone by the water's edge, silhouetted against the glittering surface of the harbor. No visible backup, no Natalia. "I half expected you not to show," Michael called as Alexander approached. "I half expected a team of FBI agents." Michael's smile was tired. "They're busy going through your estate with fine-tooth combs, finding quite a bit from what I hear." "Not everything." Alexander stopped several yards away. "Where's Natalia?" "Safe, away from all this." Michael gestured vaguely toward the city. "She's done enough damage." "And you bossed them." "I've got unfinished business." Alexander's hand drifted toward his gun. "Is that why we're here, to finish things? If I wanted you dead, I'd have let Natalia pull the trigger." Michael moved to sit on a concrete block, suddenly looking much older than his years. "We've known each other since we were kids, Alexander. You killed my father. I helped destroy your empire. I'd say we're about even." "Then what do you want?" Michael reached slowly into his jacket. Alexander tensed, but what emerged wasn't a weapon. It was a flash drive. "Insurance," Michael said, tossing it to him. "Everything Natalia collected over 6 years. Bank accounts, shell companies, offshore assets. Enough to rebuild if you're smart." Alexander caught it one-handed, suspicious. "Why would you help me?" "I'm not helping you, I'm helping her." Michael's gaze was penetrating. The waitress, Elena. Alexander's expression hardened. "Leave her out of this." "Can't. She's already in it, and you know it." Michael stood in hands in pockets. Natalia was consumed by revenge. 15 years of her life gone. "I don't want that for you." "I'm not Natalia." "No." "What were you going to do if you found out I really had betrayed you? Put a bullet in my head, and then, what, hunt down everyone else who wronged you, become exactly what my father said you were?" The words struck with precision, finding weak points in Alexander's armor that he didn't know existed. He remained silent, jaw tight. Michael continued, relentless. "Your father was a good man, Alexander. Mine was not. But they both taught us the same lesson: revenge destroys everything it touches." "This isn't about revenge," Alexander said quietly. "No, Then what is it about? Alexander had no answer. Michael checked his watch. I've got a plane to catch. Natalia and I are disappearing for a while. He met Alexander's eyes. You should consider doing the same. The FBI won't stop until they have you. Running isn't my style. Neither is losing. Michael turned to leave, then paused. That girl, she sees something in you worth saving. Don't prove her wrong. As Michael walked away, Alexander called after him. Why did you really help me destroy Natalia's plan? You could have let her kill me. Michael looked back. Because somewhere under all that power and ruthlessness, I still see the kid who stood up for me in 5th grade when the bullies came. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. And because somewhere your father is watching. I figured I owed him one. Alexander watched his oldest friend disappear among the containers, emotions warring within him. The flash drive felt heavy in his palm, salvation and damnation in equal measure. Exactly 14 minutes after he'd left, Alexander returned to the car. Elena straightened as he slid into the driver's seat, studying his face. Well, she asked. He held up the flash drive. Insurance. From Michael, Alexander nodded, starting the engine. He and Natalia are leaving the country. And you let them go. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Some debts can never be repaid. Some can never be collected. Elena placed her hand over his. Where to now? He turned to look at her, really look at her, as if seeing her for the first time. This woman who'd entered his life 4 days ago and somehow managed to upend everything he thought he knew about himself. I need to see someone, he said finally, and I need your help. The cemetery was quiet, morning mist still clinging to the manicured grass. Alexander led Elena through the rows of headstones, his posture rigid, face set in stone. He stopped before an elegant marble monument bearing the name Blackwood. William James Blackwood, beloved husband and father, justice for all. Alexander stood motionless, staring at the epitaph. Elena remained a step behind him, understanding instinctively that this moment wasn't hers to share. I haven't been here in 15 years, he said quietly. Not since the funeral. Elena said nothing, simply moved to stand beside him, offering silent support. I was 19 when he died. Alexander's voice was distant, as if speaking from across a great divide. Pre-law at Columbia, following in his footsteps. He was so proud. A muscle worked in his jaw. Then I found him in our kitchen, bleeding out, 3 bullets in his chest. Your father was a judge. The best, incorruptible. That's what got him killed. Alexander's eyes remained fixed on the headstone. He was about to sentence Victor Caruso to life without parole. The evidence was ironclad, but Caruso had friends in the system. Michael's father, Elena supplied. Alexander nodded. James Stone was my father's bailiff for 10 years. They played poker together on Sundays. He was like family. Bitterness edged into his voice. He let Caruso's men into our house, held my mother at gunpoint while they waited for my father to come home. Elena's heart constricted. Your mother, They killed her too, made him watch before they shot him. The stark brutality of it stole Elena's breath. She reached for his hand, found it cold and unyielding. I wasn't supposed to be home, Alexander continued. I had finals, but I forgot a textbook. His voice grew distant. I came in through the back door, heard voices, found my father on the kitchen floor. Alexander, he was still alive, just barely. He told me who did it, made me promise. He trailed off, swallowing hard. Promise what? Justice, the word hung in the air between them. Not revenge, justice. Understanding dawned on Elena. So you hunted down Caruso and his men. I put a bullet in each of them. No emotion colored his voice now. I was 19 years old and I killed 5 men. Should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. No, others came after me, friends of Caruso, associates. I had to defend myself, had to build power to protect what was mine. His gaze never left the headstone. And somewhere along the way, I became what I was fighting against. Elena squeezed his hand. This time he returned the pressure. What my father wanted, what he died for, was justice within the system. What I gave him was blood. Alexander finally looked at her, his eyes haunted. I've spent 15 years building an empire that would have broken his heart. The raw honesty of his confession left Elena breathless. She reached up, laying her palm against his cheek. It's not too late, she said softly. The FBI has everything. I'm looking at decades in prison. Maybe that's where this was always heading. Her eyes held his. But you have a choice now, Alexander. You can run using whatever Michael gave you, or you can do what your father would have wanted. And what's that? Face justice on your terms. Alexander's expression shifted, something resolving behind his eyes. He looked back at his father's grave one last time, then nodded. I need to make a call. Special Agent Catherine Thompson of the FBI's Organized Crime Division was not easily surprised. 20 years in the Bureau had taught her to expect the unexpected. But the call she received that morning nearly made her drop her coffee. This is Alexander Blackwood. I'd like to turn myself in. Now she sat in an interrogation room at the Federal Building in Manhattan, watching the door. When it opened, she had her second surprise of the day. Alexander Blackwood entered impeccably dressed in a custom suit, looking more like he was attending a board meeting than surrendering to federal custody. Behind him came a young woman Thompson didn't recognize. Dark hair, green eyes, the bearing of someone far tougher than her appearance suggested. Mr. Blackwood, Thompson said, rising, I admit I didn't expect you to actually show up. I'm a man of my word, Agent Thompson. Alexander took a seat across from her, motioning for Elena to sit beside him. This is Elena Reyes. She's here as a witness, not a suspect. Thompson studied Elena with interest. Ms. Reyes, you're not what I expected. I get that a lot, Elena replied coolly. Let's get to it, Alexander said, redirecting Thompson's attention. I'm prepared to plead guilty to specific charges and provide testimony against certain organizations. In exchange, I want full immunity for Ms. Reyes and several of my associates. Thompson leaned back. That's quite an opening offer, Mr. Blackwood. What makes you think you have enough leverage for those terms? In answer, Alexander placed a flash drive on the table. 15 years of records, names, dates, transactions. Every corrupt official in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut who's been on my payroll. Every police officer, judge, and politician. Thompson's eyes widened slightly, the only indication of her surprise. That would be quite valuable if it's authentic. I'm also prepared to testify against the Donato family, the Bratva operations on the East Coast, and 3 South American cartels. Alexander continued. You're looking at the biggest RICO case in FBI history. And in exchange, as I said, immunity for Ms. Reyes and selected associates, witness protection for several key witnesses, and I served my time in a medium security facility, not maximum. Thompson considered him for a long moment. Why now, Blackwood? You've been untouchable for 15 years. What changed? Alexander's expression revealed nothing. Let's just say I had a conversation with my father recently. 3 hours later, the preliminary agreement was in place. Alexander would surrender himself officially the following morning, after finalizing arrangements with his lawyer. Elena waited in the lobby while he completed the paperwork, her mind reeling from the day's events. Thompson approached, coffee cup in hand. Mind if I join you? Elena gestured to the empty seat beside her. Free country. For now. Thompson sat studying her over the rim of her cup. You know, we've been building a case against Blackwood for years. Never could get anything to stick. He's too smart, too careful. And yet here we are. Here we are, Thompson agreed. The question is why? Elena met her gaze steadily. Maybe he's tired of running. Men like Alexander Blackwood don't get tired, Ms. Reyes. They get caught or they get dead. Thompson leaned closer. So what really happened? You heard him. He had a conversation with his father. His father's been dead for 15 years. Sometimes those are the conversations that matter most. Thompson studied her for a long moment, then nodded as if coming to a decision. He's looking at 15 to 20 years, even with the deal. That's a long time to wait for someone. Elena's expression revealed nothing. Who says I'm waiting? The way you look at him. Thompson stood, and the way he looks at you. As she walked away, Alexander emerged from the conference room, his lawyer beside him. The man was still talking, but Alexander's eyes found Elena, immediately something softening in his gaze as she rose to meet him. It's done, he said simply. I surrender officially tomorrow at 9 a.m. Elena nodded, emotion tightening her throat. What now? Now, his lawyer interjected. Mr. Blackwood needs to get his affairs in order. There's a substantial amount of paperwork. Actually, Alexander cut him off. What I need is dinner. He looked at Elena. With you, if you're willing. The lawyer spluttered. Alexander, there isn't time. There's always time for what matters, Charles. Alexander never took his eyes off Elena. Well, she found herself smiling despite everything. I know a place. Elysium was exactly as Elena remembered it, opulent, exclusive, humming with the quiet energy of wealth and power. The maitre d' nearly fainted when he saw Alexander recovering quickly to usher them to the best table in the house. Mr. Blackwood, sir, we had no idea you were coming tonight. It was a last-minute decision, Antonio. Alexander guided Elena with a hand at the small of her back. The usual table, please. The staff scrambled to accommodate them, pulling out chairs, unfurling napkins, bringing water and bread with frantic efficiency. Elena watched it all with a detached amusement. They're terrified of you, she observed once they were alone. Old habits. Alexander studied the menu without really seeing it. Though after tomorrow's headlines, I imagine the reception will be considerably cooler. Elena reached across the table, taking his menu and setting it aside. Why are we really here, Alexander? His eyes met hers. Full circle. This is where we met. You fired me. Best mistake I ever made. A waiter approached, hovering nervously. Sir, would you like to see the wine list? No need. Bring us the bottle of Chateau Lafite 1982. Alexander's mouth quirked in that almost smile. The one that's not corked. The waiter hurried away and Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. You remembered. I remember everything about that night. His expression grew serious. You were the first person in 15 years who wasn't afraid of me, who saw past what I'd become. I saw you, she said simply. Yes. He reached across the table, taking her hand. You did. They ordered, without looking at the menu, the meal passing in a blur of conversation that deliberately avoided tomorrow. Instead, they talked about childhood memories, favorite books, places they'd always wanted to visit. Normal conversation between two people who, under any other circumstances, might have had a normal relationship. As dessert arrived, Alexander's expression grew solemn. There's something I need to ask you, he said, reaching into his pocket. Elena's heart stuttered. Alexander, he placed a small envelope on the table. Your grandmother's medication costs $600 a month. Her rent is $1,200. You have $45,000 in student loans and medical debt. She stared at the envelope. What is this freedom? He pushed it toward her. Inside is the deed to a small apartment in Queens paid in full. There's also documentation for a trust fund that will cover your grandmother's medical expenses for the rest of her life and enough to pay off your debts. Elena's throat tightened. I can't accept this. You can and you will. His voice was gentle but firm. It's not a gift, Elena. It's what you've earned. For what, 4 days of my life? For saving mine. He held her gaze. Everything I've built has been tainted. Blood money. But this making sure you and your grandmother are taken care of, this is the one purely good thing I can do with it. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. Why? Alexander's expression softened in a way she'd never seen before. Because for 4 days you made me remember the man I was supposed to become. The man my father wanted me to be. Elena's fingers trembled as she took the envelope. What happens after tomorrow? I go away for a very long time. His voice was matter of fact. You live your life, finish your degree, take care of your grandmother. And us, the question escaped before she could stop it. Alexander's smile held a depth of sadness that broke her heart. There is no us, Elena. There can't be. Because you decided that. Because I won't let you waste your life waiting for a convicted felon. His voice was gentle but firm. You deserve better. Don't I get a say in what I deserve? Anger flashed in her eyes. Not this time. He signaled for the check. Come on, there's one more place we need to go. They drove in silence, the city lights blurring as they crossed the Brooklyn Bridge. Elena stared out the window. The envelope clutched in her hands and emotions warring within her. Gratitude, anger, a bone-deep sadness that threatened to overwhelm her. Alexander parked in front of her apartment building in Queens. The neighborhood was quiet, most windows dark at this late hour. He turned off the engine but made no move to exit the car. Your grandmother is waiting, he said softly. Luca made sure she got home safely from the safe house. Elena nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Elena. He turned to face her fully. I need you to understand something. What happened between us, it was real. More real than anything in my life for 15 years. Then why end it? Because I love you. The words hung in the air between them. And loving you means making sure you have a future. A tear slipped down her cheek. That should be my choice. Maybe. He reached out, brushing the tear away with his thumb. But it's the only gift I have left to give you. Elena caught his hand, pressing it against her cheek. I didn't ask for gifts. I just asked for you. For a moment, something wavered in his expression. Then he leaned forward, capturing her lips in a kiss that felt like goodbye. When he pulled back, his resolve had returned. Goodbye, Elena Reyes. She got out of the car on legs that felt unsteady, the envelope clutched in her hand. As she reached her building entrance, she turned back. Alexander remained in the car, watching her. She raised her hand in farewell, then slipped inside. From her window, she watched his car pull away, disappearing around the corner. Only then did she allow the tears to fall freely. 5 years passed. The world turned. Life moved on. Elena finished her degree, graduating with honors in criminal justice. Her grandmother's health stabilized with proper care. The debts that had once threatened to drown her were gone, replaced by a stability she'd never known. She kept track of Alexander's case through news reports and court records. True to his word, he'd provided evidence that led to the largest RICO prosecution in FBI history. Dozens of corrupt officials were indicted. Criminal organizations that had operated with impunity for decades were dismantled. Alexander himself received 15 years in a medium-security facility in upstate New York. The papers called it a sweetheart deal. Those who understood the value of his testimony called it justice. Elena never contacted him, never wrote, respected his wishes even as they tore at her heart. She dated occasionally, but nothing serious materialized. Something within her remained locked away, waiting. On a crisp autumn morning, 5 years to the day after Alexander surrendered himself, Elena stood outside the gates of Elysium Restaurant. The establishment had changed hands after Alexander's conviction, renovated and rebranded, though the name remained. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the doors. The interior was different, brighter, more modern. A hostess approached with a practiced smile. "Good morning, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" "No," Elena replied. "I'm actually here about the manager position. I have an interview with Mr. Dinelli." The hostess brightened. "Of course he's expecting you. Right this way." She led Elena through the dining room to a small office in the back. An older man with salt and pepper hair rose to greet her. "Ms. Reyes, Frank Dinelli, please have a seat." The interview proceeded smoothly. Elena's resume was impressive: degree in criminal justice, experience in restaurant management, excellent references. What it didn't show was her history with the establishment. "Well, Ms. Reyes, your qualifications are excellent," Dinelli said, closing her file. "But I must ask why Elysium? With your background, you could work anywhere." Elena smiled. "Let's just say I have history with this place." "Oh." Dinelli looked intrigued. "I was a waitress here years ago, before the change in ownership." Recognition dawned in Dinelli's eyes. "Under Blackwood?" "Yes." "Interesting." He studied her with new appreciation. "Well, that certainly adds a unique perspective. The job is yours if you want it." Elena extended her hand. "I do. When can I start?" "Monday morning, 9 sharp." As she left the restaurant, Elena's phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. "Congratulations on the new job." Her heart stuttered. Only one person could know about the interview already. Only one person still watched over her from a distance. She typed back, "Thank you." 5 more years. The response came almost immediately. "I'll be waiting." 5 years later, to the day, Elena stood at the gates of Woodbourne Correctional Facility, heart hammering against her ribs. The morning was crisp, autumn leaves swirling across the parking lot in gusts of wind. She'd arrived an hour early, unable to sleep, unable to wait any longer. At precisely 9:00 a.m., the gates opened. A single figure emerged carrying a small duffel bag. Alexander Blackwood had aged in the decade of his incarceration, silver now threaded through his dark hairlines, etched more deeply around his eyes. But he moved with the same contained power, the same quiet dignity. He stopped when he saw her, something flickering in his eyes. Surprise, hope, fear. Elena stepped forward, closing the distance between them. 10 years. 3,650 days, and still her heart recognized him instantly. You came, he said simply. I told you I would. 10 years is a long time, Elena. His voice was rougher, deeper. I wouldn't have blamed you if you'd moved on. I did move on. She met his gaze steadily. I built a life just like you wanted, got my degree, took care of my grandmother until she passed, became manager of Elysium, then owner. Pride flickered in his eyes. I know. I kept track. I know you did. A small smile. Your lawyers aren't as discreet as they think. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. So why are you here after all this time? To finish a conversation we started 10 years ago. Elena took another step closer. You told me you loved me, then you walked away. You never gave me the chance to say it back. Alexander's expression stilled. And now I'm saying it back. Her voice never wavered. I love you, Alexander Blackwood. I've loved you for 10 years. And if you're still the man I believe you are, the man your father raised you to be, then I want to see where this goes. For a long moment, he simply looked at her as if memorizing every detail of her face. Then he dropped his bag and pulled her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that contained 10 years of waiting, of longing, of hope, deferred, but never abandoned. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, his forehead rested against hers. Where do we go from here? He asked softly. Elena took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. Home. We go home. They walked together toward the parking lot, toward the future, leaving the past behind at last. As they reached Elena's car, Alexander paused, looking back at the prison one last time. My father would have liked you, he said quietly. Elena squeezed his hand. I think he would have liked the man you have become. Alexander turned to her, and for the first time in 15 years, he smiled foully without reservation or shadow. Let's find out together. Hand in hand, they drove away from Woodbourne toward New York City, toward whatever waited for them there. Not a crime lord and a waitress, not a prisoner and his visitor, just two people who had found each other across an impossible divide, who had waited 10 years for the chance to begin. As the prison faded in the rearview mirror, Elena glanced at Alexander, finding him watching her with an expression of wonder. What? She asked. I just realized something, he said softly. For the first time since I was 19 years old, I'm free. Elena smiled, taking his hand once more. Then let's make it count. And as they drove toward the rising sun, toward New York City, and whatever future awaited them, both knew with absolute certainty that they would.